This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Well, did you ask for two handsome, knowledgeable men? Unfortunately, that's not this show here on the Sports Source Digital Network. Tyler Ivens and Chuck CAVALARIS. Action is officially on your screen. We have a lot to get into, especially now that we've transitioned to the defense side of the football. Chuck, let's go ahead and get started. We've been talking a whole lot about the offense. We're now just a touch over 100 days. We'll call it 105, 106 before the Vols noon kickoff we have learned against Syracuse on August 30th. I had an opportunity to catch up with Josh Heupel just a couple of days ago, and the question that I asked him when we were having a private one-on-one, can your defense be as good as it was last year? And his response to me, we have to take a right step in the right direction to be better. Why not be better? It was a lot of a positive. Of course, I think it was just kind of an answer that he would say to anybody. But can this defense take the next step and be as good as it was last year? Well, I'll get into some of these numbers coming up, but my goodness, brother, last year, fire Tim Banks, rehire Tim Banks, and now this defense is wanting to take another large step in the right direction.
I tell you what, I don't know how you can keep putting so much on your defense. When you go back and look at how many games, not only did the defense keep you in the game until the offense got going, even just a little. So I think it's really questionable if they can. Obviously, some of that depends on how the offense is going to play. How much is the defense going to be on the field? I think it's more likely a slight step back than a big step forward.
You know, and a lot of this success has to be, at least when you talk about praise, be put on the likes of Rodney Garter. William Inge, I thought, did a fantastic job his first year coming in at linebacker. Willie Martinez down the line, even though he was another one of those get-rid-of candidates, and the secondary was a pleasant surprise, one of the luxuries for the defense last year. I want to talk about the rushing yards allowed, because anytime that Texas got brought up last year, there was Tennessee. Oh, but Georgia's deep, and then there was Tennessee. It seemed like that they were butt up against each other. I want to talk about the rushing attempts in the Southeastern Conference. I was always taught, if you want to be good in the Southeastern Conference, you got to run the football and you got to, or stop the run. If you want to be great, do well at both of them. Tennessee did well at both of those last year. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, 2.9 yards per carry. That was good for second in the SEC. So let me ask you right now as I grab my magic board. Last couple of years, Tennessee has ranked 6th, 2nd, 1st, and 2nd. That's years 21 through 24. Hat tip, John Pennington through the lenses. So in 2025, if last year's mark was set at 2.9 yards per carry.
Right.
Chuck CAVALARIS, what would you set the over-under at for yards per carry defense allows this year on the ground?
Well, we have a really good target range, don't we? Like the past 3 years, 2022, 3.2 yards per carry, then 3.1, then last season 2.9. I think we're looking going back maybe to that 2022 number. I would put 3.2 slightly higher than what we saw last season.
So I'm going to follow you here a little bit because, as you said, how remarkable was that defense last year? And just how good was it knowing you had the likes of James Pierce? You had the likes of big Amari Thomas there on the defensive line. I think a lot of this has to be talked about from a couple of reasons, a couple positions. I'm cheat sheeting over here because we got a couple of things off the set here looking at depth charts. I want to know, how well is Jackson Moy going to do replacing one of the big men at the defensive side? How relatively healthy has Tennessee been last year? I want to give you a compliment. You talked about this on the Sunday show with John Pennington. You and I were going side by side, and you said it. Talk about injuries last year. Tennessee avoided them for the most part.
And that was one thing that I had down on my notes to say. You had a rotation, right?
There's also that.
You could keep people fresh. And I don't know that's going to be quite as good of a rotation this season. I think you're still going to have good players. But you look at that, can you limit like that? Yeah, I don't think you had those really like game-breaking type runs either. I don't know you gave up. We always talk about the 30-yard gain in passing. can you continue to limit that? And a lot of that falls on, obviously, your linebackers and DBs.
How often, and you've been covering this program more than I have and a whole lot longer than I have, how often has Tennessee grabbed a lottery ticket and come away back-to-back seasons relatively healthy? I'm not trying to say that the pendulum's going to swing one way or the other, but I'm trying to buffer in that there's going to be a few more injuries this year than there were last year.
One of the big ones last year, Keenan Pili.
There it is.
And how much changed when your middle linebacker went out. And obviously, you got some people that stepped up. But I think we're looking at that 3.2, 3.3, and I think it'd be a pretty good number.
You know, we're going to talk about a player who last year, if it wasn't for his injuries, perhaps maybe he has a larger campaign, and I anticipate that that's going to happen this year for one Tyree West. I was a big fan. Remember last year, James Pierce started slow, so who was the benefactor for a lot of those big numbers? Tyree West. Remember, it was James Pierce 2 years ago when Tyler Barron was a big benefactor of all of those big plays. I want to move down to the second question I have today. Leading tackler, not so much the name, but you can identify who you believe it's going to be, but how much leading tackler will have when it comes to total tackles. Last 4 years, here's some names you might want to be refreshed by. 2021, Matthew Butler led the team with 47 tackles. Roman Harrison in 2022 with 39. How about Amari Thomas? We just mentioned him moments ago with 35. If I told you Joshua Josephs led the team in tackles last year, would you believe me at 39?
No, I had to do a double take on that.
I'm going to go ahead and throw the name out there who I believe is going to be the leading tackler this year. It's going to be one of Arion Carter or Tyree West. But I'm not looking for the player. I'm not looking to identify the uniform number. Chuck Cavalaris, whomever it may be, Tennessee's leading tackler this year will have a team high what? Set the mark over under team total tackles.
Well, interestingly enough, Tyler, the past 3 seasons it has not been has not been over 39. 39 twice, 35 once. I would go 37 and a half on the leading tackler.
Now we're about to have a conversation. Do you have concerns about the rotation? I know we kind of jumped the gun a little bit. I didn't even prepare you for that. That's why I'm glad that we can go full circle with this.
Right.
Do you believe that this is going to have to be a little bit of an Iron Man defense this year? Because if you are going to, again, as Josh Heupel would like to see, as Tim Banks would like to see, the next step forward, I feel like you're going to rely on a lot of these heavy recruits. And I think Arion Carter, a little bit of the disrespect that his name's not being brought up as more of a poster child or face of this program. I've been told he had an electric spring, and I've been told that it's going to be a massive step in the right direction for him this fall. I expect Arion Carter to be a monster at the linebacker position where many people go, don't let Seven get a hold of you. He'll put you to the ground.
Well, you would certainly hope that's the case, but here, if you're talking Iron Man, to me, that means you get people going down with injuries. Mm-hmm. I think the way Tim Banks likes to play, the way Tennessee likes to play defense, try and keep them fresh, especially with that rotation in the defensive line. So if it jumps up to 43 and a half, that would be the biggest number for your leading tackler since Josh Heupel's been head coach.
I'm going to take it one more step forward. There's so many question marks about this offense. We know when we've chatted on this program as well as across all of the digital network shows, Joey Aguilar's issues at giving the football away to the opposition. Seeing that Josh Heupel's never had a quarterback that turns the ball over to the number that Joey Aguilar does, should we be factoring in a higher total because the defense will spend more time on the field?
I wouldn't yet, and I'm not ready to automatically anoint Aguilar as a starting quarterback where he's going to get more than, say, 60 or 70% of the snaps.
That's a callback to former shows.
So, I mean, but we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, the interception numbers were like 10 and 14, 24 total his last 2 seasons at Appalachian State. So that is a factor. Your defense, here's one more thing, too. Is Tennessee going to be back to tempo? Up tempo. Is your defense going to be right back on the field after a three and out, maybe a first down, and then you punt the ball? So there's several things that factor into this, but I'm not ready to go 43 and a half. I'll take 43 and a half under for 100 right now for your leading tackle.
Advent Electric has been providing high-quality electrical contractor solutions for 46 years. From 24/7 emergency electrical services to providing skilled residential and commercial electrical contractors and everything in between. Our expert certified electricians are equipped to help you no matter the size or complexity. Advent Electric, 865-588-0631.
So do you like action? Shout out to Jerry. Just recently met Jerry the other day. We appreciate you continuing to view not just us here, but so much of the content that's pushed daily across the entire SportsSource digital network platform. Remember, like, subscribe, ring the bell, comments. Are we a little too high on some of these numbers? Would you be cleaning us out when it comes to where I'm setting the Tyler and Chuck sports book? Let's go full circle here for the third one, Chuck.
Okay.
We've brought up a lot of names. I have attempted to bring up a lot of names almost as if it's foreshadowing to what our third and final marker will be today. I want to talk about the category of tackles for loss. TFL seems to be a very, very popular conversation starter when bringing up the defense. Before we get into it, I'm going to ask a generic question. And when I say Tennessee defense 2025, spitball, who are some of the names that come to mind who will stand out on this defense? I'm going to imagine Arian Carter's the first one.
Well, he's
maybe
first
others.
One. Joshua Joseph, for sure. I think he's got a chance to really shine. You can look across the board on who you're trying to replace. Is it going to be more by committee? But I'm looking at Joshua Joseph for sure as for one of those TFLs from the end position.
So last year's tackles for losses in 2024, here are your top three stat compilers. James Pierce, first round pick to the Falcons, he finished with 13 TFLs. Joshua Joseph's, just highlighted by Chuck, he finished with 9. How about Bryson Eason? Hat tip to you, sir. You finished with 7 as you return to that defensive line again this year for Rodney Garner. That 13, 9, and 7, the quick math for you, 29. So, Chuck, I want you to identify not only who you believe those 3 candidates are, but what do you believe the over-under should be for the 3 total tackle for loss leaders on the 2025 Tennessee football roster. I'm going to go ahead and quickly write down who I believe it's going to be, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to let this marinate. I'm going to write down quick little names, and we'll do the complete number total.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm going to hit you with that one, and then I'm going to finish with, and I'm going to finish with him. And then my number set on all these are going to be yes, yes, yes. So, Chuck Cavalaris, tell me if you agree or disagree before, and then I'll show you my total number.
Okay.
Joshua Josephs will be a top 3 tackle for loss leader this year.
Got a yes.
Arian Carter will finish in the top 3 of tackles for loss this year.
I'm not so sure from the middle linebacker top position, but I would definitely have him in that mix.
Tyree West.
Right, that's a very good choice.
Okay. If I told you, for the sake, I'm keeping Carter. But if I allowed you to sub Carter out, who would the other one be? And why does it smell like Bryson Eason?
Well, because he did it last year.
Okay.
I mean, and so why not? And maybe even could do more than 7, which was what he had tackles for loss last year.
So I'm going to finish with Josephs. I'm going to finish with Arian Carter. And I'm going to finish with Tyree West. In my head, I just wrote it down. And now I'm going to give you the number. Will those 3 players combine for over under 25.5 tackles for loss? Reminder, 29 was the marker set the last year by Eason, Pierce, and Josephs.
Right, and here's what you got to do.
By the way, I went 11 with Joseph, 7 and 7 each for Carter and Tyree West.
James Pierce last season was the only one double digit, correct? Right. With 13.
And he had to make up a lot of the early woes, if you will.
Right. Yeah. So who is going to fill that kind of void?
Right.
I think that's a good number. I would just go slightly over. I had like 27.5.
Is there a candidate we haven't brought up that you think, man, there's an opportunity that we're going to be talking about?
I was
you guys
looking
Sunday,
at
us Saturdays.
Dominic Bailey you might talk about. I mean, I don't know. I think to somebody emerges, it's obviously great for Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm looking at a man who, I don't know why, But every time I've had an opportunity to talk to so many people who are seeing daily practices, the people who join us daily during our show over at The Animal, the one name I keep hearing repeatedly, a man who is just going to absolutely skyrocket this year. His phrasing, and I'll just keep it to myself, his stock will skyrocket this year. Joshua Josephs.
Yeah.
I've been told Joshua Josephs is absolutely got his eyes set on Pittsburgh in 2026, and he wants to be a problem for a lot of people who don't choose him in the NFL draft.
Right. And can you get a few more snaps there too?
Yes.
Is it going to be as much of a rotation? And to me, we talk about the hot hand at running back.
Yeah.
How about the hot hand on the defensive line too? I know they rotate them out, especially in those September games when it's so hot. But that's who I would have first. He had 9 last year. 2 more, he's at 11. I think that would be a great number. He'd catch a lot of eyes, plus get a few TFLs, get double-digit sacks. You're going to be at Pittsburgh for the draft.
Chucky C. Note says he's going to start throwing some Benjamins around on some of these markers, which means I got a little bit more research that we have to do over the next 100-plus days before the Vols officially kick off against Syracuse. How are you feeling about that noon kickoff? You can leave that in the comments below. And who are some of those defensive players we didn't identify when it comes to popular categories like yards per carry allowed and tackles for loss? Handshakes, we'll do it again in the near future. Can't be made possible without Chuck Cavalaris. Tyler Ivens, smiles across the board. Like, subscribe, and comment. A lot more down the line in the coming weeks right here on Action.